All right. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about how to not suck at network marketing. Because if you're going to do this, you want to do it the right way. Hey, what's up, my fearless friends? Todd Falcone here. Welcome back to another episode. So I figured I would just have a conversation with you and let's just talk about how to be good, how to not suck at this business. Okay. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Todd Falcone. I've been in the network marketing profession for 36 years, 35, 36 years. Kind of hard to do the math at this point, but about 3.5 decades. And I haven't been in and out and here today, gone tomorrow, gone for 5 years, back again for a couple months. I've been literally eating, breathing, sleeping, drinking, living network marketing every day for 3.5 decades. So I think I'm coming from a pretty decent place to advise you on how to be good at this business because I honestly, when I started in network marketing, I did suck at it. So, and I don't know if there's even a better word. I sucked at it. So, I know that's not a professional word, but we'll just go with it. So, in fact, I mean, I don't normally, when I do episodes like this, go into my story. I just go right into the content. But just, for those of you that don't know my background or my story in this profession, I got introduced to network marketing as I was graduating from college. So I was going through a career fair trying to find a job and, do what most college kids who are graduating are doing, and that's trying to find their career path. And right at that same time, some dude found my name on a list of graduates at Long Beach State, looked me up in the white pages, and called me. And he was like, "Hey, my name's Jim. I'm with our Orange County Marketing Group. We're a marketing company. We're looking for people that can train and manage others in the expansion of our company, and we'd like to talk to you." And that's literally word for word what this dude said to me 3.5 decades ago. Why? How can I possibly remember it? I mean, I can tell you the address that I went to was 18201 Von Carmen Suite 610 in Irvine, California. In fact, I went and visited that building about 5 years ago just because I hadn't been there for years. And the reason I can remember that so vividly is because that day changed the direction of my entire life. It was my first introduction to network marketing. My jobs up until that point were my first job was McDonald's. Then I worked at Jack in the Box. Then I parked cars at Kelly's Restaurant all the way through college. I sold women's shoes at Standard Shoe Store for probably 3 months, but the boss standing over my shoulder wasn't very fun. And then the last job I had prior to doing this was selling cable television door to door in Spanish. And so that was my career path up until that point. And I remember walking in and being greeted by an attractive woman that had a smile on her face that looked like she was having a great time. She's like, "Hey, what's your name?" "My name's Ellie." I'm like, "Oh, I'm Todd." She's like, "Well, have a seat. Can I get you anything to drink?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm good." And then more and more people started piling into this foyer, however you say it. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I got competition." Like with this, like I don't even have a clue that I'm going into some biz op pitch. Like I'd never heard of multi-level marketing, network marketing. It did not exist for me prior to that experience. And so, you know, I don't know, there was like 40, 50 people that were in there. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, all this competition." This like a cat. I didn't even know what a cattle call was, like whatever. So they bring us into a room. There's probably 50, 60 chairs, a whiteboard in front of the room, some funky gadgets on the side of the room that I later found out were air and water filtration units. And I sat there and I watched this presentation. And this is interesting because again, most people don't know this story, but I mean, I literally just typically get into content, but there's always lessons in the story. So I sat there, and again, the first thing was, "Oh my gosh, these people are nice." Of course, network marketers are nice, right? They're trying to get you into their business, but it was just a pleasant atmosphere. It was enjoyable, and I just already was like, "Okay, these people are really cool. This would be a fun place to work." And even as I'm sitting there going through this business opportunity presentation, I still don't know that it's network marketing. I still don't know that I've got to give money. I'm like, I had no clue. And so to some extent, I think I was so green and naive and not knowing anything that I went in with a crystal clear mind. When I got done with, when the presentation was over, all I could see was 10 grand a month, no boss. You know, you got this product that there was clearly a need for it. And you sell it with other people, you make a retail profit, you can build a team. There's no limits to the size of your team, and you can create whatever you want. I'm like, this makes sense to me. Like from a conceptual standpoint, it was like, wow, this makes sense. And and I started and I signed up. I limited out my college credit card, gave them $500. They gave me a thing back then called a convenience charge, which was an unsecured loan at 28.99% interest, 29% interest. So I could borrow another $500 and start out with $1,000 in water filters. That's how I started. And this is 1989. So and people complain about it being $300 to get started. I started with it was either a grand or 5 grand to get started in that deal back in the day. And it was interesting because I had a phone call, uh, like just like actually yesterday with a friend of mine who's hugely successful as a real estate developer and investor. But he and I started in network marketing together. He used to work for McDonnell Douglas. I talked to my buddy Ben. I hadn't talked to him for a bit, and he was in that office that day. And so I came in and I was willing to do the work. Like I was willing to do the work. In fact, he even said this to me because I remember, man, when you came in, you were like so eager and ready to get after it and so coachable. And if you're like, just tell me how to do this, like show me how to do this. Like I was very eager to understand how to do it. And so I started, I did the memory jogger list and wrote it down and started making the calls, stuttering through the phone calls. They gave me a script. I was like butterflies in my stomach and cotton mouth and scared to death, very uncertain of myself. I mean, why would anybody follow me? Like, I've never made any money, like all the normal things that people have. And the reason I titled this "How to Not Suck in Network Marketing" is because I sucked at it. Like literally, 2 years into it, I had nothing to show for it financially. I had nothing to show for it. Like I quit my job, which was honestly, I was making like a grand a week selling cable television door to door, working like 3 nights a week, 3 hours a night. I mean, it was really kind of crazy. And then and I'm thinking in my mind, like, I'm going to be making 10 grand a month in like 90 days. And I'm going to be driving a BMW and I'm going to have the Rolex watch. Cause back then it was like, everybody showed the flash, like all the testimonials were people with their diamond rings and they're making sure that their watch is showing on the camera and standing in front of their BMW, their Porsche or whatever. And there was a lot of lifestyle flashback back in the day. I mean, it still exists today, but it was, I mean, I just immediately like connecting success with like material things, like what could I go buy? And but like here I am like working, showing up every day, and we were working out of an office, so I'd show up into the office and spend all day there making calls. I had to pay for my own phone bill. I had to pay for office rent. It was like $500 to rent a desk. Plus back then the phone bills scared the crap out of me. It was like, man, this is like 89, 90. So you're paying per minute fees. I'd have a phone bill that was $700 to $1,100 a month. So my operating costs were $500 a desk rent, 700 to $1,000 a month for, the phone. And then if you're running ads in LA Times or Orange County Register, which we were back in the day, I mean, who knows how much that could have been. So, I mean, just like the difference between now and then, I think it's way easier to do a network marketing business and way cheaper to do a network marketing business than the way we ran it back in the day. And because I quit my job, I'm now coming from a position of desperation. Like I literally got to a point where I was living off of top ramen. Like back in the day, I think it was like 13 cents a pack. I mean, it's so much sodium in that. Like occasionally I could get myself a Domino's pizza or something. And just running out of cash. I was like knocking on doors selling water filters to try to make my rent payment. I started getting behind on my credit cards and not making my payments, and eventually started having Guido, the mean credit card guy, who's, may I speak with Todd, please? Yeah, this is Todd. You need to pay up, man. I don't even said man, but whatever. Like these guys back in the day, these debt collectors, they were mean. They sound like they were going to come at you with a baseball bat or something. And I was running out of cash. I had like 12 grand in credit card debt, and I'm like panic mode. It's coming out in my voice. Like I mean, I was not saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm desperate. You need to sign up with me," but everything that my body was communicating and emanating was like total, complete desperation. So, note to self, you guys: number one, if you got your job and it's paying the bills, don't be in such a rush to like quit your job. Why don't you prove to yourself first that network marketing is going to work for you, rather than like I don't know, like be in the same mode that I was in. If I could do it over again, which I can't, I would have not quit my job because it was like, I mean, for a 22-year-old kid making, $4,000 a month, barely working, and I could have still built the business full time because I was only working 12 hours a week. It was crazy. I would have done it differently, but I can't go back and change it. It is what it is. But my recommendation to you, if you're like new to network marketing, don't quit your day job, man. Like it's just, prove to yourself that you can make money. I mean, and here I am 2 years into it. Check this out, 2 years into it. And then the other thing is like, how bad do you want it? Like I wanted it so freaking bad that like I was showing up every day. I was prospecting and nobody was signing up with me. I talked my way out of so many sales. Like people would say, I'm interested. I'm like, oh, this thing is so great. I kept like trying to sell after I asked for the closing question. I mean, so many mess ups, so many screw ups. So like you don't have to go through the same, mess that I went through. So I finally got to a point where creditors were chasing me. My family owned a radio station in Northern California. I moved home, lived in the bunk beds, took a job as an account executive at their radio station, never sold advertising in my life. I remember walking into the first sales meeting, all the account executives are like looking at me, oh, here comes the owner's son. I know they were thinking like, oh, they're going to take accounts from me and give it to this kid, or or he's going to be the lazy owner's son and just sit around or whatever. And I came in with a different attitude, a different work ethic. I showed up earlier, I stayed later, I worked harder, I prospected more. I came in with a very different entrepreneurial mindset. So while I didn't make money those first 2 years, I learned a ton. I learned a ton about, discipline and action and focus and commitment and, willingness to work and hustle. And so it's funny because I'm living in the bunk beds. My mom's like, I told you that didn't work. That culture that you were in didn't work, and I had to go to cut up all my credit cards, go through something called consumer credit counseling, where you cut up all your credit cards, and then you have to pay off this monthly fee where they put all your credit cards into one thing that you're paying off. And I'm living at home under my mom's umbrella. So I mean, if I was doing network marketing under her roof, I would have been kicked out on the street. She would have kicked me out. So, but here's the deal, because I knew I wanted to do network marketing, I found another network marketing company. And honestly, I don't even know if I ever have like shared like this much depth of my history on any episode that I've ever done. So I find two different companies. I meet this guy Ron, and Ron was with a company called Pharmanex, which or actually back then it was IDN, Interior Design Nutritionals, which became Pharmanex, which is a division in New Skin. And I told Ron, I said, "Hey man, I've got 2 years of full-time network marketing experience. Like, bring me your stuff. I want to see it. Like, bring me everything you got." And we met at Rancho Cañada Golf Course in Carmel Valley. And I walk in, and he was already there for the meeting. And he had this boardroom table that was filled up with like every sales aid, every brochure, every product. And like honestly, I walked in, I was like, oh, like overwhelmed. So even and here's another little lesson: if somebody says, "Bring me all your stuff," I've got experience. You don't need to bring them all your stuff. I literally got overwhelmed, and didn't join that company. And then I met Yuri, this 4'2" Asian lady that was with a company called Bodywise International, and she came in. I met her at a coffee shop in Pacific Grove, California, and she brought this what was called business in a box. It was like this little cardboard box, had two things of shakes, this AM PM Right Choice vitamin formula, and I think it was like Supercell or Oxy G, or I don't remember what the third product was. And she kept it incredibly simple. So again, as I'm telling you my story, there are lessons in the story. So, here's Ron overwhelmed me with too much information. I didn't join. By the way, that was a superior company, still is to this day. It's a I don't know, a couple billion plus a year publicly traded company. Bodywise peaked at 50 million and then eventually disappeared. So, as far as like which company went further, clearly Nu Skin went way further than Bodywise ever did. But I didn't join that business because Ron listened to me and just laid it all out in front of me. And there was just too much information. Yuri kept it super simple. I joined Bodywise. Now, here's the deal: I'm living at home in the bunk beds. I can't have no product shit there. I can't have no check shipped there. So I found a friend. I was having my product and my check shipped to a friend's house while I was beginning this now part-time journey. So I'm working during the day, and this is pre-cell phone day. So I'm coming home and I am like I have a roll of quarters and a pager. So if a prospect paged me back, I would go to the payphone, I would make the call, or I would take my prospect list to a payphone. I would sit in a payphone and I would make prospecting calls because occasionally I could make calls at the house when my mom and my stepdad were gone. But like if she's like if she had no clue, like no clue. So I'm they're doing me a solid by giving me a job at their radio station, allowing me to live in their house for free and live in bunk beds. Like that's humbling, try dating in bunk beds. It's not real easy, but I did make it happen because I met my wife, invited her to a Grateful Dead show, and we went. That was our first date, and we came home. I think I slept on the top bunk. She slept on the bottom bunk. That was our very first date. That was 30, at this point, 32 years ago. And so I guess you can date in bunk beds. So it worked out for us. But she after by the way, I met her within probably 5 or 6 months of me doing this business part time. So now I'm about 2.5 years into my network marketing journey. And she moved to Monterey, took a job. I helped her get a job at an ad agency because she was actually working for an advertising agency. That's how I met her. She was working for an agency out in Fresno, and they were my client because they handled this ski resort called Sierra Summit. And I was like, who's handles all the ski resorts? So nobody was handling them, so I went and got the client. So we met, we fell in love, and we have been together ever since. And then I was having the product and the check shipped to her house, and I'm making some decent part-time money. Like this is, I'm making 1,000, 1,200, 1,500, couple grand a month. In addition to, now I didn't quit my job. I made a commitment to helping out the family's business. And what's crazy as well is within like 12 to somewhere between 12 and 14 months, I was the number 2 earning account executive in that market at a radio station that was targeted towards women 25 to 54. It was a soft rock radio station, and our ratings were not great. Like, when it comes to, if you don't understand advertising, a lot of times they're buying based on your ratings, like your average quarter hour listener, how many listeners your radio station has. And we were like, I think we were rated like 5th or 6th in the market. And the market was like market number 75 in the US at the time, the Monterey, Salinas, Santa Cruz market. So I was really not selling on ratings, but selling on relationships and the fact that we had listeners, and selling more on qualitative ideas like the quality of our audience versus the quantity of our audience. And so I'm now the number 2 earning account executive in a moderately rated radio station. Well, how did I do it? And how does that fit into the story for you guys? Well, I came in with like this different attitude. I didn't own the radio station. I was an employee. I was never going to own the radio station. It was my stepdad's radio station. But I treated every single day as if I owned it. Like, how would an owner act? Well, an owner would show up earlier and probably leave later than other people. An owner would probably hustle more. An owner would make less excuses. And so I just treat, I honestly, I would be leaving the office at 8 o'clock in the morning while the first account executive is walking in, running off to my first appointment. And everybody else clears out at 5 o'clock. I was still upstairs in the sweaty office in the American Tin Cannery Outlet Center till 7, 8 o'clock at night when everybody else bailed at 5. I was literally the last dude to leave, first person to be there. So, and I had, amazing entrepreneurial education. So the education that I got from being, in network marketing served me well, which enabled me to, quickly surpass people that were at these top radio stations, selling spots for $75 when I was selling them for $25. And so obviously you're going to make more commissions at $75. It's commercial versus $25, but I still managed to do it. My wife and I moved in together pretty quickly after she moved to Monterey, probably within 6 months of that. And I'm still doing this business part-time. I'm sneaking it around from my mom. So this is 2000. So let's see, 90. I gotta get my numbers right. So okay. So in 95, so 92, wait, let me get it. 91, 92, 93. So I'm a couple years into, maybe a year and a half into building Bodywise. My wife and I are now living together. We're living in this one bedroom duplex in Pacific Grove, and I'm working out of the garage. And I had, I'm coming home from the radio station. I'm making phone calls at my house at night. I've got this great lifestyle because I'm making decent money. I mean, decent for me was like 60 to 70,000 a year selling advertising. Then I've got this extra couple grand a month coming in from Bodywise. So definitely a huge lifestyle change, but we're still like saving money and trying to figure our stuff out. So we're living in this rental. And and I was still honestly, I was still coming from a position of desperation. I still had that nagging, lack of self confidence that I just and they could feel it in the tone of my voice. Like it wasn't like, oh, please join me. I'm not really making very much money, and I've been at this for over 2 years, and if you would join me, that would be so great. I didn't, I wasn't saying that, but I know looking back that I was emanating desperation. And again, you may be desperate, but if you're emanating desperation, you, people are going to feel that and they're not going to join you. So I remember one day, and this is many years before I ever took any training on NLP, neuro linguistic programming, which I did my full certification, basic and master certification in that probably, I don't know, 12, 14 years ago. And I remember going, you know what? This whole thing of like, coming across desperate is not serving me. Like, and I thought to myself, well, if I was making big bucks in this thing, how would I act? Would I talk like that guy that I just talked to, or would I carry myself different? And I'm like, no, I would carry myself different. I would talk with a greater degree of confidence. And if they asked me a question, I wouldn't get all scared or disshuffled and not able to answer the question. I would handle myself differently. So I just decided one day I'm going to act as if I'm making 20 grand a month. And that doesn't mean like, hey man, my name's Todd Falcone. I know you just requested some information about making money from home, and I'm making 20 grand a month. You should listen to me. It was there was no language that I used. It was just how would I behave if I was making X amount of dollars. And what was interesting, the desperation went away. And it was in that very garage. There was a carpet and there was a closet that was built in there. They kind of made it into a bedroom, but it was my office. That was the first room that I was in where I got to over 10 grand a month in network marketing by harnessing something that I've taught many times through, different episodes that I've done, what's called the harnessing the power of projection. And I didn't know that I was harnessing the power of projection until I studied NLP. And what that means is everything that you say and that you do, how you talk, your mannerisms, what you're wearing, how you're communicating, especially when you're meeting a new person, it becomes their reality of who you are. So what you project onto a person becomes their reality of who you are. So, like, for example, if the first time you meet somebody, you're completely obliterated drunk, they may, and their first impression is you were a sloppy drunk. They might be like, "Oh, this dude's just a sloppy drunk," because that was their first impression, and that's what you projected upon them. And so just so you understand the basic premise behind that. So any of you can take the opportunity to just think to yourself, well, how would I act if I was making X amount of dollars a month? Would I act the same way I'm acting currently? And many of you probably say, no, I would carry myself differently. So carry yourself differently. And it's not about fake it till you make it. I hate that term. When it was taught to me years ago, it was literally buy one suit, make sure you look like you're making money, and go buy a fake Rolex, which I did. And I remember clearly one day, I'm like showing my watch, and this guy's like, dude, that's a fake Rolex. I'm like, no, it's not. He's like, I sold Rolexes. They don't even make a watch that looks like that. He goes, take that thing off your effing wrist, is what he said to me. And I just was so embarrassed. I threw it in the trash can. I mean, the guy did not, he didn't join my business. That's for sure. And I felt so embarrassed. Like that was it's an embarrassing moment. And I'm sharing all of this with you guys. I don't normally open up like this on these episodes. Like, I mean, even when I go speak at events, like I get, hey, I'm getting introduced, and then I go right into training. But there's like so many lessons that I've learned along the way that I thought, okay, how did I go from sucking at network marketing to getting good at it? One thing I never did is I never gave up. I mean, eh, call me stubborn, whatever. Like I never was going to stop. So I never did. I never stopped. I just kept on going in spite of not seeing the results. I mean, how many of you can hang for 2 years making zero money and still, come get after it? A lot of people don't last 3 months. I mean, I lasted, first of all, 2 years. I took a brief hiatus, probably a 3 month hiatus, because I couldn't work in that office in Long Beach anymore because now lived in Monterey. There was no office there. I couldn't feasibly do the business the way it was done because back then that particular company was all based out of offices. So I had to find another company. The person that kept it simple is the person that I joined. I made money in that company. And also during that time frame in 2000, or excuse me, 1995, I found a company called ProStep, which was a lead generation network marketing company that my friend Andy introduced me to. It was a lead company that had a comp plan attached to it. And what was interesting about that is, I mean, I built my business for like 10 years with leads, like purchase business opportunity leads. And I was with ProStep from it's their 6th month of being in business until they paid their very last check. And I had the opportunity to work thousands of leads. You can't talk to thousands of people and not get better. So, how did I go from sucking to not sucking? Well, I didn't quit. I studied salespeople. I studied professional network marketers. I paid attention to what they did, what they said. I did my best to model it. I attended events. I attended seminars. I drug our sales staff one time to it was called back in the day a Get Motivated event. Peter Lowe was this guy that was putting on these massive events. Some of you guys might remember those, where they would come into a major city and there would be like 10 to 12,000 people that would attend these Get Motivated events. And there would be like former presidents and real high level celebrities and all these different people. And there was this one guy that I knew was speaking at this thing called Dan Kennedy. And I'm like, okay, we got to go to this. I told my stepdad about it. We got to get the whole sales staff to go up to this thing. And I wanted to see Dan Kennedy. And Dan was the last speaker. So here, the former President Bush was the second to last speaker. At the end of the day, this is like an 8 hour seminar. At the end of the day, everybody's leaving. Like literally, as soon as the president was done, like everybody, like 90% of the people were getting up, including the other account executives that I drove up with from Monterey to San Jose. And I'm like, no, we're not leaving. They're like, it's over. I'm like, no, it's not. We got one more speaker. Like, oh. I'm like, dude, I drove, so you ain't going anywhere. We got to watch this guy. And and so they begrudgingly sat down, and I'm like eager, like I want to hear from this direct marketing like legend. And so Dan Kennedy spoke, and I went and bought his Midas Touch marketing deal, which was back then was on cassette. And I mean, I immediately started listening to the tapes. I started applying it into my job as an account executive and applying it into my network marketing business. And so you guys hear me say this all the time. Well, I mean, if you've seen me before, if this is your first, then you never heard me say this, but you know, it's not the knowledge that you have. It's what you do with it. So I've always been a guy for, just by choice. Like, what the hell am I reading a book for if I'm not going to take the stuff from the book and put it into my business? Or why am I listening to this and not applying it? So I was like listening to Dan's stuff and I would apply it into my business and it was working, both as an account executive and, because I'm still got the job at the family radio station and I've got this business. And now I've got, Body Wise, and I've got this lead generation program that's helping me feed it. And now what's crazy is I start making money in ProStep. Now I'm not a big on the whole idea of building multiple network marketing companies, but those two, this is a rare occasion where like you got your company that you're building and you literally have a feeder program. Like the only reason I was in ProStep was for the leads, the voice on demand, fax on demand. This was high tech back in the day. And we had one of the very first autoresponders like literally ever existed. Like I would send emails, 100% open rate. Any of you guys that market with email marketing, I mean, you're lucky to get 15% open rate when people have subscribed to a newsletter that they want to get. It's crazy. Back then though, man, 100% open rates. It was crazy. So again, I don't want to make this episode super long. I hope you're understanding the little lessons within the story. Let me go back to something really quickly because here's a lesson that I actually learned before I was ever in network marketing. It was one of the most valuable lessons. So I told you I sold cable television door to door. So I met this guy, Fernando. My dog downstairs, my little Chihuahua, he's named Fernando after this guy, Fernando. I met this guy in history class, Professor John Walzer's history class at Cal State Long Beach, and he was 42 at the time, and he was like a friend of the professor's. Somehow he ended up hanging out with me and my friend Sean White, and he was 42, which is a little weird, and we're like 20, 21, 20, something like that. And he always had a big wad of cash, and we never had any money because we were broke college kids. And so Fernando, we liked having him around because like he'd buy beers and he'd come to all the college parties and he loved it. And you know, he'd been hanging out for like a year, and I don't know exactly what the guy does, but he always had money. And he said to me one day, he said, Keto, he called me Keto. Keto, I'll show you how to make $1,000 a week. And I was like, is it legal? And he's like, oh, I'm numero uno. I'm number one I sell cable television. I sell HBO. He goes, I'll get you a job because I show you how to make $1,000 a week. I'm like, cool. So I go in there, make it through this interview. The director of marketing hires me. We go out into the streets in his 1971 GMC panel van, one of the creepy ones with no windows on it. Like if you're in a neighborhood and you're protecting your kids, there's like no windows except for the front windshield and the driver and the passenger. And we get on the back in the we get in the back of his van on a queen size mattress. Like he's literally got a bed in the back of this van. I mean, I'm telling you, it's a little creepy. And he uh he writes out a script for me in Spanish, and the script is like, "Hola, yo soy del cable de televisión. Vamos a venir a estar todas personas aquí con el cable. Damos un mes de prueba. Si le gusta, lo deja. Si no le gusta, todo es gratis. El HBO es mitad de precio." I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I still have it memorized like 36 years later. And he told me, he goes, I will only get you a job if you do it my way. So he's like, all the other guys, they work 6, 7 days a week, and I'm number one every week. And I only work 3 nights a week, 3 hours a night. And I only sell HBO, and I only sell it to Spanish speaking people. So I had to agree to that. And I didn't know exactly what that entailed until he wrote out a script. And so he wrote out this script, handwritten script. I wish I had that to this day, like, you know, on a yellow pad, and I would have it framed because it was the very first script that I ever learned. And so he writes out the script for me in Spanish, and the and and it worked. It worked like a charm. He and I were, I'd come, we had a sales meeting on Monday mornings. I'd walk in after surfing like Newport River jetties, come in, and it would be Fernando and Todd, or Todd and Fernando every single week. And you know, those guys that wear the glasses like this, you know, like, well, I don't know if I can get them with these, that like, have them down hanging over their nose like this. One of the guys will always be like, just pissed off because you know they're hustling and they're working in Fountain Valley and Huntington Beach at these 4 bedroom houses, and we're walking into these all Mexican neighborhoods. I'm the only white dude walking around, and I spoke decent Spanish, but like I memorized that script down pat, man. I had it down. I'd make my 6 sales. I made 50 to 60 bucks a sale, 300, 340 bucks a night. Bang, done. Go to the bars with my bros, and then wake up and surf the next day. And I'm a full-time college student at the time. I'm still in college while this is going on. And I wanted to revert back to that because that lesson is this: like, if somebody has what you want and they're willing to teach you, they're willing to show you how they did it, you don't reinvent the wheel. You do it just like they teach it. So you guys all have like good uplines, good leaders, people that you can learn from. Why the hell are you trying to do it your own way when you don't even have a way yet? Like, like like I didn't know what I was doing. Network marketing didn't exist the day before I walked into that business opportunity meeting. Of course, I'm going to be coachable. I'm like, don't know anything about business. All I know is 10 grand a month, no boss, and unlimited potential. Like what? And honestly, I didn't even know about unlimited potential. My mind was like the earth was flat. You know, those flat earthers where at the end, there's like, you fall off, I guess. Well, all I could see in my mind was like 10 G's a month. If you made 10 grand a month, you like fully made it. So again, going back to the title of this, how to not suck at network marketing. Okay, well, let's backtrack a little bit. If somebody has what you want and they're willing to teach you, you do it. Have some discipline, have some staying power, have the willingness to stay long enough for you to figure it out. It may happen fast, it probably won't. you need to adjust your expectations because it'll probably take you longer than you anticipate. So if you know it's going to take you longer, and if you plant your flag in the ground and say to yourself, I'm going to do this until I get it figured out, then you've eliminated exit options that most people actually, the truth is, most people quit network marketing, even fully capable people, because they're not making as much as they thought they would in the time that they thought they would. So they bail. Read the books, attend the seminars, go to the events. And I didn't say this, but I will go back to this one. Within probably the first 5 months of my first network marketing company, if you hadn't guessed it, it was NSA, National Safety Associates. Back then it was air and water filtration units, and which is now Juice Plus out of Memphis. They're still in business, still a very successful company. They changed their name at some point when they went away from air and water filtration to their fruit and veggie caps. But within the first 3 months, I remember there was a leader in the office, and I'll finish on this note. There was a leader in the office, and he said to me, he said, Todd, because here I am, I'm showing up, man. I'm showing up and I'm working, and I'm like, I'm eager. I'm not one of those dudes that like signed up and then disappeared. I'm like showing up every day. And he goes, hey, man, I'm like, what? He goes, do you want to be a leader in this company? Or no, he said, this is what he said to me. He goes, hey, there was a seminar called Basic Building Blocks to Success going on in San Diego, California. And this is, from Long Beach to San Diego, maybe a couple hour drive. And he goes, are you going to the event? Are you going to the seminar? And I was embarrassed, but the truth was I wasn't, because I didn't have the money. He goes, you need to be at that event. Because I was like, no, I'm not going. I wanted to go, but it was $300. I didn't have the $300. He goes, you need to be at that event. And he turned and he just walked away from me. Just all I saw was the back of his head. And so the message was very clear. It was like, dude, you need to be at that event. And so I figured it out. I scrimped, I saved. I don't know what I sold. I didn't sell drugs. I know that. I never did. I don't know what I did. I came up with $300. Okay. I slept in my car for 2 nights. I couldn't afford the hotel, but I could afford the seminar. So I went. And I remember before the seminar even began, I remember walking into whatever the hotel was. It was in La Jolla. And there was a line of people. There was like 600 people in line waiting to like get into this event. And immediately I'm like, oh, this is bigger than I thought it was. Like, because I was just around like this group of like 15, 20 associates in the office and whatever prospects came in. So that's as big as the whole thing was for me. And I was like, wow, I haven't even learned anything yet. I haven't even walked in the room. And I'm like, oh, wow, look at all these people. There's more to this than I thought. And then I'm in this seminar, and like, this was not like this dude, this original mentor, man, like he had you in the room from like 8 o'clock in the morning until midnight, both days. Like there was no, like, I don't even know what the agenda said. If the agenda said 8 to 5, he didn't give a damn about the agenda. It was like until he was done. So we went from like 8 to midnight, both nights. Like, I mean, it was long, long days, but I learned a ton. I took rapid notes. Like, I'm like, oh, now, and what that did for me, that very first event, what that did for me is it gave me a degree of belief that I did not have before. I had like way bigger belief. Now, did I get it figured out overnight? No, because I mean, this is still, remember, this is 3 months into my deal. And my first 2 years, I didn't make any money. But what it did do is it just gave me this degree of conviction. And honestly, it probably was like a catalyst for me in cementing my decision to stick around long enough to finally figure it out. So, like, when you get invited to, if you've never been to an event for your company or some kind of seminar or something, like, man, like, you don't skip those opportunities because they're big belief builders. They're great learning opportunities. I learned a ton, but I think more than anything, it just like, this is way bigger than I thought it was. I'm going to stick around until I get this stuff figured out. And actually, I'll end with this. This is kind of funny because my mom, when she found out I was doing this, because I came home, like I drove home from that first meeting. I was like, Mom, I found my career. Like, I found what I'm going to do. Of course, I'm the first kid in college that's graduating from any university in the entire family. She's like, oh, I'm so proud of you. What are you going to do? I found this deal where, you recruit people and they recruit people and they recruit other people and I'm going to be rich. I'm going to be a millionaire. She's like, oh my God, you're in a cult. If you do that, I'm going to make you pay back every last dollar of your college education. Don't you dare do that. They've got you. That's a scam. That's a cult. But clearly I did it anyway, so I didn't listen to my mother. And what's crazy is she planted the cult word in my head, and I'm so naive that I did not know what a seminar was. So when that guy said to me, "Are you going to the seminar?" My first thought was I thought I heard seance. So I literally remember I was like, oh my gosh, maybe my mother is right. Like maybe this is a cult. And then I quickly realized like seminar, that's an event, that's a training event. But I for a split second, oh my gosh, seminar, seance. For some reason I connected the two. But um look, guys, I mean, I know this is a much longer episode than I normally do, but you can if you just pay attention to the little lessons that I shared with you. That's like, this is not my whole story. This is like my story of evolving from brand new to not understanding to learning and being frustrated and figuring it out and then making money. I could go all the way into how I ended up making way bigger money. My parents sold the radio station. I immediately went full time into network marketing. At that point, I was already making a full time income. I immediately like just segued from part time to full time. Just it was an easy segue for me. How I became, and I guess I'll say I'll end with this. People ask me all the time, how did you end up being a speaker? Did you always want to be a speaker? No, I didn't. This was never part of the plan. I had a company that I'd spent a long time with, ProStep. They went out of business, and when they went out of business, we all went into a company called Zango, which was just beginning to like go through some vertical growth. I built a team over there because we took all of our people that were in ProStep because there was no more check, had disappeared, and we moved into Zango. And a friend of mine, Jeffrey, called me up and said, "Hey, will you speak at an event in San Francisco?" And I was like, "Dude, I guess. Like, what do you want me to talk about?" He's like, "Bro, just talk about how you prospect." Like, I was running all the prospecting trainings for this company. I was dialing leads live in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people, like every single week. He's like, "You're a great recruiter." But at that point, I was a great recruiter and a great business builder. And he's like, "Just talk about what you do." I'm like, okay. So that was literally the very first event in front of a live audience with people in different companies that I ever spoke at. And I guess I did a good enough job where I got invited to another one and then another one and then another one. And then it was like a year later, some guy comes up to me at some event I was speaking at. And he goes, "Do you have any product I can buy from you?" I'm like, "No, I wouldn't have. What are you talking about? I'm not going to bring any network marketing product." "No, not network marketing product. Do you have like cassettes or CDs or something?" I'm like, "Uh-uh." He goes, "Well, if you did, I would buy them from you." And that's when I went and I produced How to Win in the Game of Prospecting, which was the very first training program that I've ever produced. And I've produced like, I don't know, 20 different audio and video programs that are still great. So, I mean, How to Win in the Game of Prospecting to this day, like that, I would never change anything about that because that's my story of how I went from sucking at prospecting to getting good at prospecting and being one of the top recruiters in literally every other company I've ever built. So, anyhow, I don't know. Definitely a longer episode for you guys today. And I appreciate you for being here. I'm going to look at my screen real quick because I don't normally do this, but I need to figure out what episode is this. This is episode 302. Okay, so you might be on my YouTube channel. What's up, YouTubers? Appreciate you guys. If you're on my podcast on audio, if you want to catch more details on this episode, other things that'll help you in building a network marketing business, it's all right here at toddfalcone.com/episode 302. TODDFALCONE.com/episode 302. Long one today, I know, but appreciate you guys. And I hope you got some good value out of it. So we'll see you on the next episode.